Hello and welcome to this live Facebook event, Facebook Live with me, Rod McKenzie from the RHA and guests from Highways England. And we're very lucky today to be hosted by T. Baker and Sons. And it's very kind of them to allow us into their yard to see what they do. And they're a very, very busy haulage company and RHA members. Well, we're here with two representatives from Highways England to talk about all the things that matter in our industry. We'll be getting to know them in just a moment, but I would say this is all about you. So please do join in. If you're watching on Facebook, let us have your questions. I'll be getting them and I'll be posing them to our guests. And you can also join the debate on Twitter if you like. So please do join in. And that's the whole joy of doing a Facebook Live. Now, as for our guests, let me introduce Mel Clark, Customer Services Director from the Operations Directorate of Highways England, and Hannah Moffat, who is a Traffic Officer at Highways England. Mel, let me just start with you. What is Highways England?
Okay, Rod. So Highways England is the government-owned company that's responsible for England's motorways and all-purpose trunk roads. We operate that network, we maintain it, obviously, and we have the major enhancements that ensure that it's upgraded and responding to the traffic growth and demand that is ever increasing out on our network. There are about 4 million plus journeys a day on our network, much of it by freight industry, so 66% of all freight travels up and down our network each day as well. And of course, our priority as an organisation is safety, customer service and delivering that investment for the network.
What RHA members, haulage firms often say to us is Roadworks. You know, they slow us down, makes delivery times hard to reach, all the rest of it. What are you doing to plan roadworks better? We all know roads need to be improved, but what are you doing about the scheduling?
Yeah, so we've had a huge focus on this over the last 2 to 3 years in particular. As I've mentioned, we're delivering the biggest roads investment in a generation. So a lot of activity out on the network, and we've had to really try to get to understand our customers' needs, particularly big business customers who rely on that network to drive the economy and move goods and services to everybody. I mean, we all rely on things that get delivered to us on the back of trucks. In working with the industry, such as the Road Haulage Association and others, we've really started to understand what's important to you, what are the key routes, which roads matter. And we've also understood that information about what we're doing every night, particularly around road closures when we're most busy, but you are equally most active, why that's so important that we can tell you about what the interventions are, what our strategic diversions are, and which roads are closed. So you can plan and coordinate your activity around the things that we do need to do to keep that network functioning.
So I wanted to ask you about that, Mel, actually, because there are pinch points of the year,
yes.
and we know that only too well. Christmas, Black Friday, other times of year, bank holidays and so forth. So suspension of roadworks to allow flow to improve. How do you manage that?
So, as well as improving our road closure accuracy information, and let me just say we drove that up from an accuracy published information that was about 25% accurate to somewhere in the region of 90% accurate in a 6-month period. And we've also been working with the industry to understand the periods of peak activity for you through the year. So as well as the traditional sort of bank holiday periods that for most of our customers are quite important for us to keep the network free, or certainly minimise the amount of roadworks, we do look at periods now such as the new phenomena that is Black Friday and Cyber Monday and the run up to it, the Christmas period, and times when we know that you're mostly going to be out on our network delivering those goods and services to us. So we are working with our major schemes and with our operational colleagues who maintain our network to make sure that we minimise as much activity during those periods and invest more time and energy in those periods when you're more content for us to be out working.
Okay, Mel, thanks very much indeed. I'm going to turn now to Hannah and vehicle incidents. So the whole business of accidents. How you manage accidents, how you clear accidents indeed and get the roads flowing again. Can you just talk us through about what you do to manage those difficult situations?
Yeah, well, we understand that obviously on road accidents happen. So there are emergency situations which need to be cleared and need to be cleared quickly, because that keeps our roads running and it keeps the commercial freight going to businesses and delivering all our goodies that we want at home. So the biggest thing for us at the moment is we need to clear them efficiently, and we need to make sure that the customers are all aware of what's going on. So we do work in partnerships not only with yourself, but people like the police and the DVSA to try and give really good driver education. Particularly at the moment, like Mel said, about 2/3 of our current traffic is made up of commercial vehicles, vans, HGVs, so people trying to get somewhere to connect to businesses. So there's 3 things that we're kind of looking at educating those particular drivers on at the moment. So the first one is your load security, making sure that all your straps are safe, making sure that everything that is on your wagon at the time is in a safe location and it isn't overweight and it's stored correctly. The amount of times that we have to stop traffic to clear debris, which could be someone who's lost a complete load of wood over the motorway, to something as simple as a lorry strap. People think that lorry straps, they're not much, they're not a big bit of debris. But when you've seen a hook or a ratchet strap go into somebody's tyre and they've unfortunately then had a blowout, we've got a completely different situation to be contending with. So it is good if people, before they leave their yard, before we leave a service station, just check everything over again. During transit, you may have had a little bit of a shift around, so it's always good just to check before you go. Second one is your diesel. We have a lot of diesel spillages on the network, and that can close roads, it can close whole sections for hours, because we have to come and resurface it and we have to make sure it's treated properly. And it's very slippy, so we can't let other customers use that particular section of road. So we have to go out and treat that, possibly resurface it. So our interventions there would, again, just make sure you're checking your cab over, making sure you're checking the security, making sure that cap is closed and everything is not overfilled before you leave service station yards, etc. Just making sure that that's all done. And the third one would be your tyres. Tyres are a big thing on the network. People have blowouts, HGV tyres, van tyres, they're quite big. So when they go really well, and they can spread over 4 lanes, they can spread over hundreds of metres. And when you've got a nice big clump of an LGV tyre in the centre lane, it can take bumpers off, they've got sharps on them, so it can then cause another accident. So we just ask drivers to make sure you check your tread, make sure you check the pressure, and just make sure they're fit for purpose for that particular journey.
Great, okay, thanks a lot, Hannah. This is all about you. This is Facebook Live after all, so do please get your questions coming in to Mel and Hannah, and we'll put them to them in turn. I think one of the big talking points at the moment in our industry is smart motorways, Mel. So what is the position on smart motorways, those controversial things with all lane running, and we call it lots of different things. What's the Highways England position on smarts?
Well, smart motorways are evolving, and obviously it's all about providing a network that responds to the growth of the needs out on the network, but also is a safe operating environment. So we're really focused on the evolution of our smart any roads environment, to be fair, and actually what we can do to continue to make those roads safer and more efficient and capable for our road users. So we understand there are some concerns out there about smart roads. We're working very closely with the Department for Transport and doing an evidence review of those roads, and obviously we'll reflect on those findings as we move forward.
Yeah, it's always a difficult area. I mean, the Road Haulage Association position has always been that we're, in broad terms, in favour of anything that cuts congestion and keeps traffic moving. But we're also aware that there have been complaints about the long distance, or what is perceived to be the long distance between refuge areas, and whether refuge areas are big enough to accommodate, say, 2 vehicles and all the rest of it. So is that all the sort of stuff in scope for your ongoing work?
We've heard all of those concerns, and there are a range of concerns. And obviously there's a range of positive benefits to smart motorways and any evolution of our roads. So we take all of those, we've taken all of that in, we're working with the department, and actually we will come at some point to a conclusion about what the next evolution is of our roads as we move forward.
Absolutely, and these are difficult areas and they continue to be. I'm just going to try and jump into some of your questions which are now coming in, and thanks very much to everyone who is sending in their questions, and please keep them coming. And there's a question here from David who says, can roadworks be made shorter in distance, and could there be more safe, secure parking provided? Now I guess what David is saying is sometimes we find ourselves on motorways with roadworks which go on for literally miles and miles and miles, and they're exceedingly long, and sometimes there's no work going on and yet it's coned off. So how would you answer David?
So I think there's a range of things we're looking at, including the length of roadworks. So we continually look at actually how can we deliver schemes in the most efficient way, but also in a way that customers are not, we're sort of minimising the disruption and the impact of those roadworks on our customers. You may be aware of some of the trials that we've introduced on the network, where we've introduced some higher speed limits in roadworks that have been quite successful and proved quite popular with some of our customers as well. So we continue to evolve our thinking around safe speeds in roadworks, as well as things like the right length for roadworks, and helping our customers understand how quickly we can get those roadworks on and off our network.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks a lot, Mel. I've got a question for Hannah here. What does training for traffic officers involve?
Oh, it's quite a good one actually. So initial training is 4 weeks residential. So we go away for 4 weeks and we have a facility in Moorton-in-the-Marsh where we have a mock motorway. So we go out in real life driving, we do trailer training, we go out and we do kind of scenario situations, and then we do clearance of vehicles. So we do things like dragging, overturning vehicles. So we go away for 4 weeks and then we come onto network. So I work in the East Midlands. So I went to my outstation and I spent around about 3 sets, which is just under a month, with a coach, as well as going in the back of the vehicle, so seeing how traffic officers actually work and seeing how it is real life. Stood on a side of a motorway and kind of got the feel for how the job was. Spent my 3 sets with my coach, and then I was signed off as competent. And then I did a 9-month probation. So I've been out of that now for some time, and I've just become a coach myself. So it's nice to see those people who've come from their 4-week residential and then see themselves to, qualified and competent traffic officers. So it is quite in depth, and but it's really fun. Yeah, it's really enjoyable.
And you just told us that there's a secret motorway that none of the rest of us are allowed to drive in, somewhere in the West Country.
That little stretch that I work on.
How long is it?
Our stretch goes from junction 14, 14 and a half, all the way to 30, so I work in that particular region.
No, I meant the secret motorway that you train on.
Oh, the one at Moorton.
Yeah,
it's
the Moorton one.
I can't tell you how long it is, but it is quite long enough, I can tell you that.
It's long enough, yeah. Okay, good. Here's an interesting one from John. How are Highways England working with the industry? And what John means is our industry, the industry of logistics and haulage. So do you hate us?
No, absolutely not. We're building some really fantastic relationships with the industry and with different representative groups and bodies of the agency. Of the industry. Right the way from quite a strategic level. As you know, I sit on the Motorists Forum and subgroup for Roadworks as well. So we talk to the industry at quite a strategic level, and we're really trying to focus down now on key things that we can tangibly deliver that make a difference. We talked earlier, obviously, about more effective roadworks coordination planning and delivering or minimising the amount of roadworks during particular peak periods for the industry. And those are just a couple of examples of things that we've worked really, really closely with the industry in order to understand what those needs are and get a collective view of how those big businesses are needing to use our network and what matters to them, and making the right decisions and affecting the right things. So we continue to do that. We do that at quite a strategic level in terms of understanding our future programmes, but equally we're doing it at a practitioner level and supporting the industry as well in some of the things that Hannah was talking about. So actually, how do we support the industry in getting safety messages across to their members so that actually they can get safely around our network and actually make a better experience for all of our road users.
Thanks. Let's talk about safety there for a moment. Hannah, what advice would you give both an HGV driver and indeed anybody else about breaking down on a motorway? What's the right thing to do?
Okay, so before you even hit the motorway, we need to be looking at, vehicle checks. So what's important? So we use a mnemonic when we check our cars, which is called powder. So P, looking at your petrol, have you got enough fuel to get you to where you're going to? The amount of times people break down on a motorway for things just as simple as having no fuel in their car. I've been to a breakdown where a car has been between the slips of a service station and she's broken down and there's no fuel in a vehicle. That's frustrating. It's putting yourself in danger. It's putting us in danger. It's putting other road users in danger. So biggest one, make sure you've done your vehicle checks. Have you got the fuel? Is your engine bay right? Have you got enough oil, screen wash? Have you got enough water, so it's not going to overheat? Have you checked the rubber on your car, your tyres? Have you looked at your window wipers? So if you get all of a sudden a heavy rainfall, can you see clearly as you're going down? Are all your electrics working? Your hazards, very important, so they need to be checked. Because if you do break down, they need to be nice and visible so the drivers can see you as well. So just making sure that check is done on your vehicle first and foremost, because that can actually reduce the amount of breakdowns we have on our strategic network. So first thing
But
to do.
even so, even if you do all those things, you will occasionally get, through no fault of your own, a breakdown. So what's best practice?
Best practice would be to get off the motorway. So if you can get to the nearest lay-by, if you can get to an SOS bay, if you can get to a hard shoulder, or if you can get into a service station or off at the next junction, continue to do so. Get off at the next safest location, and then you can sort the car from there, contact your breakdown recovery service. If you manage to find yourself in live lane, so that could be on an A road, it could be in one of our sections of all lane running motorway, the best thing to do, get as left as you physically can, make sure your hazards are on, and if you can safely do so, exit from the passenger side of the car, stand behind the barrier and call 999 because your vehicle is therefore an obstruction in the highway. If you can't get out of the vehicle for whatever reason, our advice would be to keep your seatbelt on, make sure the hazards are on, and you must get in touch with the police.
HGV drivers would sometimes say that because they're driving a large vehicle and a trailer, they're safe to stay in the cab if they're broken down, unlike a car driver who's obviously much more vulnerable.
Yeah.
True or false?
I wouldn't say it was true. We'd still give exactly the same safety advice, which is to get out of the vehicle and to stand away from the vehicle, because if you have another HGV that pulls up into the back of your cab, you are still going to go forward. No matter how big you are, you're still going to be propelled somewhere else. It could be to the side, it could be forward, it could be into something else. So I would say, get out behind the barrier, have good visibility of the traffic, and just make sure you're as far away back from the live lane as you can be.
One of the things that members often talk about, and must say, just keep those questions coming in. We're really, really keen to hear from you on all these questions. But one of the things that people ask us about a lot is those red X signs.
Yeah.
They sometimes flash on, apparently without warning, and then flash off without warning, and all the rest of it. And I see, frankly, quite a few people driving at a fair old speed down a red X lane. So there's a question here about, talk us through the rules, but also talk us through enforcement.
Okay, so obviously a red X means the lane is closed. You will see red X's and you'll see lane diverts, which are the arrows, which are telling you to move over, for a good 2 kilometres prior to an incident. It might be that they've had to be switched on quite quickly and haven't yet been turned off while we've just dragged something clear of the live lane. So please don't use them, because they are there for our safety. It takes a massive decision. We don't take putting a red X on or a lane divert onto the motorway lightly. It's there because there's road workers, it could be myself, it could be an injured party in a road traffic accident. So we do ask that you don't use those. Whether you think it's clear or not, whether it looks clear or not, you don't know. You don't know what we've just dealt with or what's about to be dealt with. So we do ask that you do comply with the red X's. At the moment, the cameras are all being switched on. There is going to be enforcement from the police. They are going to be starting to prosecute people for breaching red X's and driving down those red X lanes. It is scary. We've had people come thundering up in lane 1 or 2, up to really close to a closure. So it is important that people obey those red X's, because I want to go home to my family. Whoever's in front of me, potentially wants to go home to their family as well. There is lots of reasons why you shouldn't be thundering down a red X lane, and you should just comply with signs and signals. We're doing what we can to clear a scene and to make the roads safe for everybody. So I would just ask that is done. And I would say that we do have quite a good compliance from the RHA members, And they're also very good with this slow down, move over campaign as well, I must say. They give us a lot of space when we have broken down vehicles. They slow down or they get into the next lane, which is great. And that helps us and it helps everybody.
Well, big up to our HA members who are doing that sort of work, and also a key message there is you've got to protect Hannah. So I think we all want to do that and make sure that we obey those red X's. When you slightly dodged my question about enforcement, when will that start?
We have had some, it is starting, it is in the process. Most of the cameras are being, in the process of being turned on. And I know there has been a few incidences where prosecution's actually been successful.
Yeah.
So, we do tag the footage in our cars. Our cars have CCTV front and back. So if we see you progressing in a red X lane, we can tag the footage, we can report it to the police, and you can be also prosecuted that way.
Okay, this could be one for either Mel or Hannah, actually. I suspect this is a car driver, but I'm not sure. Damien asks, what are you doing to educate road users on tailgating, especially HGVs?
So we've just had a big campaign, relatively recent, the Space Invaders campaign, which has been quite a successful campaign. And so there's quite a lot of work again with the industry around the Space Invaders campaign. And we also did quite a bit of work with National Express, who were the coach company who supported us, and they've got the big stickers on the back of their coaches as well. And we will undoubtedly reiterate that campaign going forward. So we're very, very clear on tailgating being one of the prime concerns in terms of other drive behaviour out on the network.
So give us some guidance on what is a safe space.
Read the highway code is my recommendation, and unfortunately I can't rattle it off. It's been some time since I read the highway code.
So it's about braking distance.
It is about braking distance.
And if you know your HGV or indeed your car, if anybody is watching us now, understand what your stopping distance is at the speed that you're travelling at.
Absolutely.
And give yourself a margin of error and probably an extra second to respond.
And if in doubt, the 2 or 3 second rule is probably the way forward, isn't it? Actually, a 2 second stopping distance to the vehicle in front is a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, and I guess people would say, critics would say, and we will have some critics watching this, there's not much you can do if the traffic speed is so slow, you're inevitably kind of tailgating. And I suppose that is a practical point that you have to think about.
It's a practical point, but in reality, the main sort of severe incidents that we have aren't around tailgating at lower speeds. It will be those where they're tailgating at much higher speeds. And you do, unfortunately, see it a fair amount on our network.
Yeah, you do get a lot of bumps when people have maybe possibly been stuck in traffic, travelling far too close to one another, and you get a secondary accident just because nobody's keeping the tyres and tarmac distance from each other. The 2 seconds, 2 seconds from each other, and obviously that's going to only get worse, longer when we're looking at wet weather, icy weather, snowy weather, etc.
So they're quite simple mantras. 2 second rule, tyres and tarmac.
Yeah.
A really good way of thinking about it.
Okay, we'll be asking questions later. 2 second rule. Tires and tile. Did you get that? Okay, so other questions that are coming in, and please do keep them coming in because we absolutely need your input on this, and it's great for you. Don't often get a chance to put Highways England people on the spot, and this is one of them. How are diversions decided for planned roadwork closures, asks Nick. And I guess what Nick might be saying here is sometimes diversions either take you an awfully long way away from wherever you want to go, and on other occasions, particularly as a problem for HGVs, you might find yourself going down a relatively narrow road that you wouldn't really want to do.
Yeah, and again, this is work we're evolving as well. So we have key strategic diversion routes. We do think about the different types of vehicle that we're using them. So I'd like to think that ideally for a key route that we had sent you off on, we were not sending HGVs down under low bridges and all the rest of it. Although I know it has happened on the rare occasion, and that is something that we apologise for at the time. But generally, our strategic diversion routes are pretty good. Sometimes they are long. And we know that actually the industry has views on what we think is a strategic diversion route and what actually might be a preferred route. So again, we're working with the industry, gathering some information in the same way as we did around peak periods that you would prefer us to minimise our roadworks. We're now looking at actually what you would consider to be a best alternative route based on on routes rather than schemes, because I think we tend to focus on strategic routes around a scheme as opposed to thinking actually that entire length of journey. So there are some challenges in that for Highways England, because we're sort of tackling lots of bits of our roads, and local authorities are probably tackling lots of bits of their road at the same time. But again, it's all about that working harder to plan and coordinate and work not just across our own business but with local authorities to ensure that we are actually making and optimising the wider network effectively and helping our customers make those end-to-end journeys.
Okay, thanks Mel. There's only a few minutes left of our discussion, our Facebook Live with Highways England. So please, if you've got a question, send it in now and we'll try and get either Mel or Hannah to answer it. Here's one from Simon. Could smart traffic lights be installed at junctions and roundabouts? Software which reacts to lights could prevent needless stopping and reduce emissions. And obviously we all know that there are often traffic lights on motorways, on roundabouts and so forth. And I think what he's probably saying is that they sometimes cause, more delays than they stop. So what's a view on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not very closely cited on this work, but I know that there has been work and continues to be work in Highways England developing in this area. So we've done some close working with local authorities around traffic signalling to improve the performance on and off network and throughput of traffic. But again, it affects all these other issues around air quality and so on and so forth. So work and things go on, and actually over time, and as technology improves and actually these imperatives become greater, we will see those things happening.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Now we've got some three sort of related questions coming in from Dan, Morton and Mick. And they're basically asking about places for drivers to stop that are safe and secure. They don't say whether this is in the event of a breakdown or just in the event of needing to stop, maybe for a comfort break. Now, I would guess the obvious answer is you need to try and hold on for the service station. But, what's the proper answer, Hannah?
Yeah, so obviously if you're looking to just use the toilet, please don't use my verge, please don't use my hard shoulder. We work on there, we walk in those particular areas, and it's not great for us. No. So hang on to the services. Using the toilet for your children as well, please get to the services. That it is too unsafe. The hard shoulder is a place of relative safety. It's not a safe place. We want you to be as safe as possible. Get yourself to the nearest services, take yourself off a junction and go there, stop there. If it's an emergency, you can't get your car to restart, you physically can't get your car to go anywhere. You have got your laybys on your APTI, so your major A roads. You've got the little SOS bays on the all lanes running. We've got emergency refuge areas. Hard shoulder, just try and get yourself somewhere safe like that. But if you're going to stop for a comfort break or have a picnic, please don't use the hard shoulder. Please make your way to the services.
Yeah, hopefully that message is certainly through to all the professional drivers who are members of the Road Haulage Association. But just another question which might spin out from this is that business that I spoke about earlier. We talked about smart motorways, refuge areas and smart motorways. How do you manage a breakdown which you have less space to work in a refuge area, don't you, I suppose, as a traffic officer, than you would on a normal hard shoulder? How difficult is that for you?
It's not really that difficult, to be honest. It's not much difference to working on an A road where you have got a small lay-by. In all honesty, because it's away from the traffic and it is in a very designated bay, we can fit up to 4 vehicles quite comfortably. And because we're supported by signs and signals, if we needed to work on the offside, we can quite easily ask for a very quick, very short lane diversion, just to give people the opportunity to see, actually, we just need to work very quickly on the offside to keep us, members, recovery drivers, safe while they're doing something. And that is monitored on CCTV by our control centres.
More broadly, Rod, we have delivered training to the recovery industry as well around recovering vehicles from ERAs, as Hannah's just said, and we can always optimise the use of lane 1 by closing that down to enable that, facilitate that more effectively.
But that's obviously a big decision, mate. Yeah. We don't do that very lightly, only if it's absolutely critical.
There's a question from Don, which is clearly not about motorways as such, but why are we seeing fewer laybys? They're being removed from old roads and not built on new ones, he says.
Okay, I suppose without knowing the specific roads he was talking about, I couldn't sort of...
Is there a policy?
Not that I'm aware of to reduce laybys, no. So, again, without knowing the specific roads he was talking about.
I think that it's sometimes the perception that local councils who might be managing some laybys might be under pressure from local residents to close laybys if they are seen to be being abused, in their view, by lorry drivers parking up overnight and using them as a sort of as a toilet.
And I think that comes back to the broader question about roadside facilities and lorry parking. Again, things that Highways England are connected to and working with the Department for Transport around understanding what those needs are and actually how we can support improvements for the industry, because we know that's probably one of the key challenges for the industry is good facilities.
Well, it is, and one of the frustrations I think we sometimes hear from members is when I go abroad, I see fantastic state-of-the-art lorry parking and lorry facilities, showers, loos that are pleasant, and all those other good things that we don't get in the UK. And that's a frustration. So
for sure, and we understand that, and that's certainly recognised in some of the work that we're trying to progress again, with support of the department to understand what the need is and actually what pragmatically can be done about it. In the short term, we do quite a bit of work with motorway service areas and actually what their offering is. But we know that's commercial industry at the end of the day, so that represents challenges for your drivers and
indeed it does. And to be fair to Highways England, previous Transport Secretary said that on safe, secure lorry parking, the business or somebody must provide. It's not for government to do that, which we wouldn't necessarily agree with, and I think a lot of other people would agree with. So anyway, thank you so much, and thanks to Hannah and thanks to Mel. We've run out of time. It's been fantastic. Thank you to everyone who sent in their questions, and sorry we couldn't get through all of them. So thank you very much indeed. If you've missed any of this live, don't worry, because it's all been recorded and we're going to share it with you later on. And if you've got any questions, please do let us know, and we can ask Highways England. So we are at RHA News on Twitter. You can find us as the Road Haulage Association on Facebook. You would know that because you're watching us now. Please do feel free. This is a dialogue. We cannot work well unless we're working with the authorities. So contact with them and with you as our members is really, really important. So it only remains for me to thank once again Mel and Hannah. Thank you for watching, and thanks very much for your questions, and goodbye.